Big fat morning show. There was that for a reason. Well, first of all, I'm so excited that you guys are here. At this age, at this big age, I now understand the importance of participation. And the fact that this gym is packed is amazing. It's so important. Over the years, I've hosted different events. You guys got to see. I'm going to give a speech real quick. Fourscore. Over the years, when you do events, they always interrupt you with the host and they say, hey, make sure you say Representative so-and-so's in the audience, or so-and-so's in the audience. And you know what, I came to the conclusion, I was like, you know what? If the people don't know who they are, then I ain't saying nothing. You need to be doing your job. The people should know who you are. Y'all work for us. We make these elected officials superstars. We got it wrong. They are representing our interests. They are not superstars. They're supposed to be representatives of us. They have to hear us. Now, the second part of that is we have to talk to them too. And so, speaking of talking to them, you guys, we have cards we'll be handing out. Put your name on the card and your question, and then I will ask the question. Okay? And so, that's going to be the thing. We're encouraging everybody to participate. We're encouraging the candidates to give real answers, not political answers. I don't know if you guys saw the debate last night. That's not going to happen here. We got two candidates who are very smart and they know what it is. They've been here before, and so they just going to represent tonight, right, guys? So we did a coin toss in the back, and Mr. Kittleman, he won the coin toss, and so he gets to go first. That also means that at the end of the night, he will be the first in closing, the last in closing. Thank you very much. I was just testing it. All right. So our first question falls under the category civil rights. Oh, I'm sorry. They both get a 3-minute opening, and so Mr. Kittleman, you get to start first.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you being here. Dr. Walls, good to see you again. I think this is our last one, and we had one here 4 years ago. And it was a great debate. We had another good one. It's great to be with you all. I thank the NAACP for sponsoring me again, and I thank you for what you do in our communities. I did want to recognize my wife. Already done that, but I also want to thank her because members of the deaf community in Howard County wanted to come tonight, but they didn't have an interpreter. And so my wife Robin, who works with deaf children, worked with Willie Flowers and made sure that we had an interpreter. So I want to thank the interpreters for being here and making sure that this is accessible to everybody in our community. I'm a lifelong Howard County resident. Born and raised and went to Afton High School. I was raised by a single father. My parents got divorced when I was 5, but I was a great man. And then I went to UMBC. Couldn't afford to live there, so I commuted, drove every day to school from Howard County. And then when I decided I wanted to go to law school, my dad couldn't afford that. I had to pay for it myself. And so I worked all day. I worked as a messenger and a copy person for a law firm so I could go to law school at night. It took another year to go. At night, instead, during the daytime, it took me 4 years. But I learned an awful lot. I learned that hard work means something. I heard that hard work is important. And that's what I think we all should be thinking about and cherishing and honoring people who work hard. I'm running for Howard County Executive because I share a lot of the same concerns that you do. I'm concerned about how our school systems become more and more political. I'm concerned about the safety of our community. I'm concerned about the higher cost of living and doing business here in Howard County. And I'm really concerned about the undue influence of big donors on politics and county government, particularly the county executive's office. I think we need to have a county executive who's not controlled with special interests. As many of you know, I participate in the Citizens Election Fund. I haven't taken one donation from a business in the entire campaign cycle. I have, thank you, and the most I've taken is $250 from any one individual person. So when I tell you, I really mean it. The only special interest I have is you. And I'm looking forward today and tonight to answering questions and going into the issues. I joked with Dr. Hall before we came down that I could probably answer his questions and he can answer my questions because we've heard him so much. But I think it's a really great opportunity for you to hear from us. And I appreciate you coming out. There's a lot of things you can be doing tonight instead of this. And I really appreciate you being informed and being participating in this democracy because Howard County is worth it. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out. I'm Calvin Ball, your Democratic nominee for Howard County Executive. I want to thank my lovely wife, Shani, who next year will be celebrating 25 years being married. And I want to thank all the family and friends who were able to come out and for just always supporting me. Every time there's so much negativity and division and personal attacks against me, they feel it too. So thank you so much. I'm a lifelong Marylander. I have an undergraduate degree from Towson State University, my graduate degree from the University of Baltimore, my doctorate in education from Morgan State University, where I'm a second generation Morgan man. I am so glad that during the last 4 years, we have become leaders in supporting education, supporting public safety, supporting our environment, and creating the very best quality of life, all while having a world-renowned response to the COVID pandemic, making sure that people got vaccinated. We kept people safe. And while many other jurisdictions saw hundreds of businesses closing down for eternity, we actually saw an increase of about 300 businesses. The best thing about this conversation, this community conversation between me and my Republican opponent, is that we each have records of 4 years. You need not only focus on the rhetoric, you can just look at our records. You can compare our records, and I think when you compare our records, the choice will be clear. I've been a life member of the NAACP since 2001, and I am so glad to be part of this conversation. Thank you so much.
All right, so our candidates will get a question and have 2 minutes to answer the question. And we're not going to go back and forth and just answer the question, and we'll move on to the next. Okay? And again, give yourselves a nice round of applause. You guys are fired up and ready to go. So, our first category, civil rights and social justice. And we'll start with you, Mr. Kittleman. In 2020, the Howard County Library System released its racial equity report, which showed that even in a county where the majority of residents appear to be thriving, some communities and subgroups do not wholly reap the benefits of residing here. The system indicators examined in this report showed Black residents were anywhere from 1.5 to 11 times more likely to fare worse than white residents across education, housing, health, legal system, and economic outcomes. What will your administration do to reduce racial inequity here in Howard County?
And thank you very much for that question. And certainly, folks, we're a great county, and we're a welcoming county, and we're a very diverse county. But we have a lot of challenges too. We do have systemic racism. We got to make sure we know how to deal with that. We got to make sure we know how to make sure that everybody is valued, that everybody has an opportunity to succeed. That's what my dad taught me. My dad was the first white person to join the NAACP of Howard County. My dad was still the only white person to be president of the Howard County chapter of the NAACP. And Larry Gibson, my former law professor, told us that actually he's the only white person in the state of Maryland to be president of the chapter of the NAACP. I say that because that's the values I was taught. The importance of civil rights, the importance of making sure everybody has an opportunity. My dad said that education is the great equalizer. That's why he fought so hard for the desegregation of our schools back in the late 50s and early 60s. That's why I've been fighting so hard to make sure that everybody has a quality education, regardless of what zip code they are. That's why I think it's important that we make sure that everybody is included at the table. That's why it was so important to save the Harriet Tubman School, that they were trying to save for decades before I became county executive. We saved it so that we can talk about the history of Howard County civil rights, so that the people in Howard County know what happened in the past, so we can have the discussions for the future. So I think we need to make sure we have discussions, we have to have conversations, we need to talk with people. If you don't talk, you won't learn. And we need to make sure that people are included in the conversation so that everybody has an opportunity. Regardless of whatever race you are, whatever sex, sexual orientation, creed, ethnic, everybody has to know that they're valued in Howard County. And my goal is to make sure that happens through housing, through employment, through education, and through all aspects, so that we would be basically, hopefully, a colorblind society. Thank you.
After all these questions for you, over the past 3 years, multiple work groups. Yes. I'm so excited. I just can't.
I've been so pleased that during my time as your county executive, after our historic win, we now have the most diverse cabinet that the county executive's office has ever seen. We have launched commissions on LGBTQIA+, Alianza Latina, giving more voice to Hispanic and Latino populations, the AAPI work group and now commission. We had the very first AAPI festival Howard County has ever seen, the very first Pride Festival that Howard County has ever seen. We not only added equity to now the Office of Human Rights and Equity, but hired the very first person to actually oversee and ensure that we are more equitable. We have been a national model for, especially during the COVID pandemic, helping people stay in their homes. Even during the census, we had one of the very fewest differences when it comes to diversity of people being counted. And then during the pandemic, we had the very almost no differences between people who were getting vaccinated based upon color, which was different than just about every other jurisdiction. And then I'm very glad that we both support the Harriet Tubman Cultural Center. It has been something that is so critically important. And that's why I'm glad that under my administration we put more than $6.5 million in to support that center. And that's contrasted to the less than $800,000 that was under the previous administration. So yes, we all support the diversity, we all support inclusion, but we also need to get things done. Thank you.
We'll have you train me.
That's right. I can use one. I say that. All right. So we're ping pong. Over the past 3 years, multiple work groups have been created to celebrate Howard County's diversity. The Asian American Pacific Islander Work Group, the Alianza Latina Work Group, and the LGBTQ+ Work Group. They have been made into permanent commissions. The decision was made not to include the African American community as a key commission to advance policies and inequities. Dr. Ball, what was the thinking by not including people of African descent?
Many of these work groups were actually fashioned after what we have as the African American Community Roundtable. It is one of the most prestigious and largest groups giving voice to African Americans in the region. It's right here in Howard County. It has members of the Divine Nine, the Greek fraternities and sororities, of which I'm proud to be a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. It has many of the black churches. And so in talking with many community members, that infrastructure was there, and we didn't want to compete with another group, whereas many of these others didn't have as much of a voice. And so I am very pleased to have worked with the African American Community Roundtable. I'm very pleased that we have been able to support more black businesses, more black nonprofits, and ensure that our black community has a strong voice. However, we still have a lot of work to do. And I am looking forward to continuing to work with our community to ensure that everyone feels that they have the very best opportunity to succeed.
Thank you for that question. Hey, I think there's no reason why we don't have an African American Commission. I mean, if you have one for the Asian American Pacific Islanders, if you have one for the LGBTQIA+, why not? I think that makes sense. But I also think I need to make sure that you guys understand, the Harriet Tubman School, he was on the county council for 8 years. never once tried to save it. Never once. Frank Turner worked really hard to try to save it. People were coming to the county executive, the county council for decades asking people to save it. It didn't get saved until I became county executive. You talk about the money you put into it. Yes, I put the money into making sure that we could move the school system out and then bring the county in. So I spent the millions of dollars getting us ready for that, and I appreciated him continuing my vision to make sure we move forward with the cultural center. I think it's very important. And the Pride Festival, planned under my administration by Andrew Howard, who was a liaison from my office to the LGBTQIA+ community, which I don't think Dr. Ball has. We have one in my office. I think it's important to have someone from the county executive's office to be a liaison to that community. So folks, I think we need to have a county executive that looks throughout everyone in Howard County, that doesn't pick winners and losers, to make sure that everyone has a seat at the table. Because as I often say, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're on the menu. And I don't want anyone to be on the menu. I want everybody to have a seat at the table. Thank you.
Mr. Kittleman, what is your position on the Liberty Act since it's up for referendum? And what would you do if the act were not to be repealed by voters to make sure profiling and targeting of immigrants doesn't occur in the county?
That's a great question. We do not enforce federal immigration law in Howard County. We have not done that. Our police officers have not done that. Under Ken Allman, they didn't do it. Under me, they didn't do it. And I'm sure under Dr. Paul, they don't do it. We don't need to pass a law when there's not a problem. When I was county executive, Hector Garcia, who was in charge of FERN, the Foreign Born Information Fraud Network, which is now Luminous, came to me and said, Allan, we've never had one complaint. Never one time a complaint. And you, well, that time it's Dr. Ball putting the bill in, that bill is actually hurting our community because it's putting this big bullseye on us and everything. Before we were fine. You were providing us money. I provided record funding at the time for FERN to make sure our undocumented and documented communities had access to resources. I did everything I could to help, and Hector Garcia knew that. In fact, Hector Garcia has endorsed my campaign for county executive. The leading immigration advocate for years in Howard County has endorsed my campaign. I don't think you need to pass a bill when there isn't a problem. And I don't think you need to do something that says that police officers from one jurisdiction can't talk to another. The chiefs of police have told me, who have all endorsed my campaign, the chiefs of police for Ken Allman, for Jim Roby, and for mine, all endorsed my campaign saying, Allan, you should never tell one law enforcement agency they can't talk to another, which the bill does. We don't discriminate in the county or anywhere in the police department. We don't. This is a solution looking for a problem. I always treat people with respect. People in my administration treat people with respect. And he's going to be able to say, they might not have told Hector Garcia there was a problem, but boy, they told everybody else. Well, you think that the leading immigration advocate in the county would be the first person to hear. Thank you.
So just to be clear, the Liberty Act ensures that undocumented folks, and frankly anybody in our community, is not discriminated against based upon their immigration status. I support not discriminating against people. And it's very nice that Mr. Kittleman talks about Mr. Garcia, who previously emailed our office and said he supported it. And it's nice that you have a person who supports that. However, in talking with so many of our immigrant communities, they were afraid to be heard. They were afraid to come forward. They were afraid of being persecuted. They were sometimes sending their children to school, and their children didn't know if ICE was going to take their parents, and they wouldn't be home when they wouldn't be home when they got off of school. And not only did Mr. Kittleman veto the legislation that just fought against discrimination, but then he put thousands of dollars into a right-wing ballot initiative, and that's why it's even on the ballot, because he supports making it so that those who are undocumented, who felt a little bit safer codifying the actual practices that he said we were already doing, he didn't even want them to feel as safe and as comfortable and as welcome in Howard County. And that's not the Howard County vision that I have. And so I strongly support the immigrant community, I strongly support the Liberty Act, and I strongly oppose discrimination.
We're going to move to education. Dr. Ball, what are the most critical unmet needs in Howard County Public Schools? And how do you plan on prioritizing those needs in your budget? And what do you see as the top priorities for educational funding?
The next county executive is going to have to continue to move forward with the blueprint, the state ensuring that we do have sufficient funding. And I'm glad that as your county executive, we saw the first $1 billion budget going to school systems. I'm glad that we actually have record funding, more funding than under Mr. Kittleman for special education. I'm glad that while Mr. Kittleman was county executive and starting teachers saw a salary increase of about $500 a year, while I've been county executive, that increase has gone up about $8,400 per year. I am so glad that we've made investments in our school buildings, ensuring that now we have the first new high school being built since 2005, a brand new Talbot Springs Elementary School. And so I think funding to ensure that we're addressing overcrowding, that has been going on for years, funding to ensure that we have the operating funds, and funding to ensure that we create the best teaching and learning environment for all of our students. This has been a challenge for years, and it's become even more challenging nationwide during the pandemic. And so we need to make those investments. We've made them over the last 4 years, and we'll continue.
If you look at the 4 years, and I do think you should look at those 4 years, in my 4 years, I gave a higher percentage of the general fund revenue to education than Dr. Baldwin. This is a fact. I did. Now, Dr. Ball talks about record funding. Every year is a record funding, but you have to do more than you did the previous year. So to say it's some big thing you need a record funding, every year I did was a record funding. Folks, it's important to make sure we make those priorities, and I will continue to make those priorities. About teacher salaries. Every time there's a salary increase, I fully funded it. Even so much so that when Dr. Cruz was superintendent, I actually put money in categories myself because she was trying to stop the teachers from getting their salary increase. And I said, no way. I said, we are going to make sure, and I put that money in the category to make sure they got it. So every time there's a teacher salary increase, I fully funded it. I don't know what else you want me to do. Also, I appreciate the Dr. Ball talking about special education. I always fully funded special education. I made sure that that was a high priority for our administration. And you talk about capital. I'm so glad he's doing what I had started. The replacement school for Talbot Springs started under my administration. The 13th high school wasn't even a thought until my administration, and we negotiated and purchased the property and put the additional funding for it. We have to have the Turf Valley Elementary School. We negotiated a deal to get that land. I am so glad that he's continued on because that's what we should be doing in Howard County. We should be working together. I did the same thing when Ken Allman was county executive. I tried to take what things he was doing to continue with them and make it work. And he's done the same with me. I think that's the way we should do it. We shouldn't be talking about political division. We should talk about how we can work together and not picking winners and losers, not saying he didn't do this. Hey, let's just be straight. If it's a good idea, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. Let's get it done.
Mr. Kittleman, in 2019, members of the County Council proposed to increase the recordation tax with an eye on putting those new revenues towards education, but it didn't pass. What are your thoughts about expanding the recordation tax, and are there other sources of revenue you can identify to support education?
I don't think we need to raise the recordation tax. Folks, it's already hard to live in Howard County. Are you going to make it more expensive for people to live in Howard County? Are you going to increase the cost of recordation? Dr. Ball already supported increasing the transfer tax 25%. We're having an issue with affordable housing in Howard County. It doesn't help to make it more difficult to pay to get a house in Howard County. We have sufficient revenues to make things happen. Dr. Paul had an $80 million revenue increase this year. $80 million. That's why he's able to do all the things he's talking about. Normally we have like $30 million. COVID was really terrible for so many people, so many businesses and individuals. It was not terrible for Howard County government. Howard County government made money after money after money. They have more money than they've ever had before. We just have to figure out what our priorities are. My priorities are to make sure we have education funding, to make sure our teachers are paid well, to make sure the classrooms get the money, to make sure people are being taught what they need in our classrooms. Not for administration, the central office. Let's focus that money in our classrooms. Let's focus it on special education. Let's focus on making sure that we have teachers who are trained in dyslexia so they understand how to help people be diagnosed. There's so many things we need to do in Howard County better. And we have the money to do that. It's just where our priorities are. Thank you.
I support funding education. And I am so pleased that while I've been county executive, we haven't just had record funding education, because Mr. Kittleman is right, each year it will be record. We have increased the maintenance of effort above the record funding much more than Mr. Kittleman. We have tripled the increase to special education. We have made it so that our educators feel heard and feel seen. And under Mr. Kittleman, the health and dental fund for the school system ballooned to a near $40 million deficit. We actually turned that into a surplus while I was county executive. We grew our policy reserves, which is kind of like a rainy day fund, to when it was under Mr. Kittleman, merely about $5 million a year, to now over $30 million, because he talks about the fire fund increase. And I don't know about you, but during the pandemic, I'm glad that we invested in our fire department. I'm glad that we invested in our first responders. I'm glad that while under Mr. Kittleman, there were years of structural deficits in the fire fund, up to almost $150 million. We actually have erased that deficit and are making sure that those who protect us know that we protect them. Howard County has the very best quality of life, not just in the state, the nation, but the world. And it's because we are willing to make the right investments. I'm willing to make the tough choices. I'm willing to lead. I'm willing to invest in the things that matter to you, and that's why I want to be a county executive.
As we're transitioning through the pandemic, we have found that some students fared well and some students were adversely impacted by the necessary measures put in place throughout the 2020-2021 school year. As county executive, what resources could help normalize and ensure that learning gaps and deficiencies are correctly and adequately addressed?
It was a very challenging time throughout the pandemic, particularly for our young people. There were physical and mental health challenges, there were education challenges, and I'm glad as county executive we've invested to ensure that there are mental health resources now in every one of our schools. I'm glad that we were able, through our HOCO Strives initiative, to change and evolve from what Mr. Kittleman started with about $750,000 for 11 students to, over my time, $3.5 million, and just last year alone, 150 of our students. We have made the investments for our students to ensure that their physical health, their mental health, and expanding things like broadband so that they know that they have the resources that they need. We partnered with our library system, and while we are going through this challenging time, and while we're on the road to recovery, we're making those record investments, as we talked about, in our schools and in every other area to ensure that our kids have that foundation foundation upon which they can continue to grow, learn, and thrive.
I didn't say it earlier, my wife is a teacher. She works with deaf children. My daughter's a teacher here in Howard County. It was really hard this pandemic for teachers and students and parents. It was hard for everybody. Very, very difficult. And when they came back in a hybrid, that was really hard. And then you had students, some at home, some in the school looking at the computers, and my daughter would be teaching them from the computer even though they were sitting a few feet away from her. They'd look at the computer. It was just so difficult. We have to make sure we don't have that happen again. And we need to make sure we do have the resources. And this is where Dr. Ball and I probably agree. I think we need to make sure we have those resources dealing with mental health, the psychologists, the school counselors. I think that's really important. Kids are suffering, and they're behind. And I'm glad. This is the first time we've had a lot of debates. This is the first time he's admitted that I started the program he calls Hope Strives. He's always just talked about it. I had to tell everybody. We started, it's called 24/7. We started in Oakland Mills. It was designed to provide wraparound services like make sure kids have food, because you're not going to learn if you don't have food. You're worried about where your next meal is. To make sure that they have after-school activities, tutoring, mentorships. We started in Oakland Mills. When the first cohort was done, 90-some% of those students were now above grade level and ready for Algebra 2 in the 8th grade. So that's another example I was talking about. We should be able to do this. I started something called 24/7 education. He continued the program. I appreciate that. He actually expanded it more. I appreciate that. Not sure why I had to change the name, but I appreciate that. I just think we need to talk about how we can help people. And I think we can work together to make that happen. And I think we can continue to provide those services to people where they are, to make sure the parents don't have to be running all around. That's why I did the Community Resources Campus. That's why we made sure all of our social service agencies were at the same location, so that people, like my father, who was a single father, would have their resources where they needed. Thank you.
Mr. Kittleman, the Centers for Disease Control have documented a steady increase in children with developmental disabilities and special needs across the country. It should be clear that special education and student support services are vital to our public schools. If elected, what budget changes or allocations would you make for special education and student support services within schools and any community or adult education services?
Very important question, and I also should tell you, my wife is a member of the board of directors for the Howard County Autism Society, and I've been very involved in issues dealing with individuals who have intellectual and developmental disabilities, individuals who have autism. I think it's important that we realize that we are a county that needs help everybody. So I would make sure that I would continue. I fully funded special education when I was county executive. I would make sure that we continue to do that. I would talk to the Board of Education and the superintendent, make sure that we're working together and make sure that those issues are being heard. I would talk to the parents. As I talked about earlier with dyslexia, I talked to many parents whose children have dyslexia and how important it is that you get diagnosis early. The same thing with autism. We need to make sure that our educators have that training. There's an awful lot asked of our educators. I know it. I'm married to one and a father of them. And we need to make sure that they have the tools and the resources that they can make sure that they can do the best for our kids. You don't become an educator for the money, folks. You become an educator because you want to make sure a difference in kids' lives. And we want to make sure that they have those resources to be able to do that. We have challenges here. We have a large population of kids and individuals with autism and intellectual and developmental disabilities. We need to figure out how best we can to provide services to them and their families. When I say families, I mean it. We need to have resources for folks for respite care. We need to have resources for folks to be able to handle the different challenges they face that we can't even imagine. I want to be the county executive to make sure that everyone in Howard County knows that they have a person as a county executive who understands and appreciates what they're going through and want to make sure that they have the services available to them. Going back to the Community Resources Campus I was talking about before. Who would have thought that we could have all those services in one location? When I became county executive, even beforehand, people were saying we need a nonprofit center, a nonprofit collaborative. Been trying for that for decades. I became county executive and got it done. You just needed somebody who's going to get things done, who doesn't care who gets the credit.
So I'm pleased once again our records are clear, not only during our COVID-19 pandemic response, where we we a leader in the state in ensuring that our families with people with disabilities were vaccinated, a model that other jurisdictions actually called us to better understand how to do that. However, we've also had a massive increase in accessible playgrounds and parks. We've cut so many ribbons to ensure that many of our children with disabilities have a place to play. You know, as a council member, I put in legislation and I asked our Commissioner of Disabilities, how can we become a model? And what can we do? And they gave us so many great ideas, including more accessible parks, making much more funding for special education in our school system, ensuring that we have more housing opportunities. We are the ones who actually were able to make Patuxent Commons a 76-unit affordable housing, with much affordable housing, much for people with disabilities, a reality. We have many more signboards now where people who might be learning delayed can go and learn how to not only interact with their peers, but learn simple things like how to read in a way that's more fun and exciting. We've made the real investments in ensuring that our community members with disabilities and their families have the tangible things to have the very best quality of life ever. And we still have a lot of work to do. We've made so much progress over the last 4 years. I'm very proud of that progress. And a lot of it came from many of the people in this room, and I want to thank you.
After all, there have been multiple instances of abuse by those towards students in Howard County Public Schools. Specifically in 2021, a security officer was videotaped punching and hitting a student at Howard High School. The student was not armed and had no weapons. The NAACP and the Council of Elders supported the case, only for the officer to be acquitted. Obviously, this can happen again. What is your solution to ensuring that schools are safe, but not hiring officers who will abuse our children?
Abuse is never acceptable. And we send our children to school with the expectation that they will be in a safe and nurturing learning environment, and they should be, particularly here in Howard County. And that's why I think it was so important for us to have a critical conversation about our school resource officers, to ensure that we improve the training, that we had a fully implemented body-worn camera program, which happened under my administration. Although we began talking about it as a community in 2016 under Mr. Kittleman's administration, that we had officers who were trained, and we had a real community conversation about these issues and these things. And we make sure that all of our school system employees know how to interact appropriately. I am concerned about violence in our schools. I am concerned about ensuring that all of our children feel safe, no matter what their background. And I think we still have a lot of work to do, and I applaud organizations like the NAACP coming to the table, having this important conversation, and making it so that all of our students are heard. And so we have a lot of work to do. We have made some progress, and I'm looking forward to making more.
No student, no parent, no teacher should ever have to worry when they go to school they're not going to come home safe. That just shouldn't even be a possibility in our county. We need to make sure that every student and teacher has a safe environment to teach. How can you be a great teacher if you're worrying about whether you're safe? How can you be a good student if you're worrying about whether you're going to be safe? Unfortunately, Dr. Ball recommended that we take all our school resource officers out of our middle schools. He recommended that. That doesn't make our schools more safe. That makes our schools less safe. When I was county executive, not one complaint about a school resource officer came to me in 4 years. Not one. I haven't heard any. All I hear is these wonderful stories. Even Dr. Ball, when he was on WBAL radio talking about why he was recommending to remove them, the whole conversation is about how great they are. How they're They were in those schools before I became county executive. When I became county executive, we decided we were going to put them in every school because I think every middle school requires them. It shouldn't be based upon zip code. It should be because all of our kids deserve to be safe. And so we started working on that. And we had a plan to have all middle schools having their own school resource officer. But Dr. Paul recommended that we don't do that. And he took the ones out and recommended they come out of the ones that were already there. That's not what's best for our kids.
Now we're going to move to youth and youth adult empowerment. Mr. Kittleman, Howard County's youth and young adult population has steadily increased over the past decade. Many youths and young adults are people of color or international origin. What is your plan for the engagement and inclusion of these new and long-time members of our community?
Great question, and man, we need to have our young people involved. We need to have our young people not feel like they're not considered, they're not respected. When I was county executive, I visited every school at least once, and I would talk to students, I would say, you are valued, and your opinion is valued. Even though you may not be able to vote yet, you can have an influence, you can give suggestions. And when I was thinking about this issue, I thought, we have all these commissions we talked about. We have all these advisory councils we talked about. When I'm county executive, we're going to have the County Executive Advisory Council with you young people. We're going to invite young people from all across Howard County to be involved and to meet with the county executive at least quarterly, if not more, to have them know that they have a voice. I want students to have a voice. And I want them to know that when they can interact with the county executive, when they can interact with county government, when they can see that they have some influence, they'll be more involved. They'll feel more empowered. Because when you see something, you can be something. And I want them to be part of that. And I really believe that if we have them more involved in the county executive's office, more involved in county government, then those young people will see that they can be the future leaders of our community, whether it be political or business or something else in education. But I want them to know that they can do that and they're valued to do that. So I think the best way we can do that is to make sure that they know that they're going to be heard and that they're going to be included and that they're going to be respected because they deserve nothing less.
When I was on the county council, I sponsored legislation, and I still remember the number, even though it was almost 10 years ago, Council Resolution 16, to ensure that young people actually advise county government on issues such as bullying and how they can be heard. Those young people went on years later to finish college and feel empowered and address many issues around the nation. And I am so very proud. I'm so very proud that our administration listened to young people when some said we have concerns about school resource officers. Now, while Mr. Kittleman may not have heard any complaints about any school resource officer ever, there were actually some people who had some concerns. And while Mr. Kittleman is very conveniently taking credit for all the good things that happened under his administration and mine, whenever he doesn't agree on that was Ken on. But he had 4 years to do something about it. He had 4 years to make it so that it wasn't just school resource officers. He had an opportunity when we were having the community conversation years ago, when there was a state delegation bill to eliminate all school resource officers, when the Board of Education was looking at eliminating all resource officers, when I called each and every elected official and figured out how can we build consensus, Mr. Kittleman, nowhere to be found. So very convenient that now, in the 11th hour, months before the election, he started talking about this issue as a way to divide us. I want us to be united. I want us to come to consensus. And I know that this is a critical community conversation to empower our children and make sure that they're heard. Thank you.
kids' meals on their menus. Do you see the value of such a policy, and would your administration stand with the coalition to see that the bill becomes law?
One of the first disagreements that then County Executive Kittleman and then County Council Member Ball had was ensuring that there were healthy choices in vending machines. Just a healthy choice. Mr. Kittleman would not support even having healthy choices in vending machines. That to me was unacceptable as we saw the rate of obesity, diabetes going up nationwide, particularly with those of lower socioeconomic levels, those people of color. I just want to make sure people had choices. I think that people should continue to have healthy choices. I think that restaurants should be empowered to ensure that they're healthy choices and that our community is educated on those healthy choices. I think, once again, the record is very different between Mr. Kittleman and I on ensuring that this was a key issue for the NAACP and numerous health organizations. And Mr. Kittleman made it a political issue. In fact, the Baltimore Sun, in an editorial, after we were able to defeat Mr. Kittleman and actually put healthy choices in vending machines, wrote an editorial and said, what was the issue? Why was it such a problem to ensure that people could have healthy food? Under a Ball administration, we're going to build upon the work that we've done. We're going to build upon being able to be one of 4 jurisdictions in the nation to win the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation Culture of Health Prize to ensure that our children and families have access to healthy food. Thank you.
Folks, vending machine in the George Howard building. Not kids there. It's the George Howard building where county employees work. When I became county executive, the first week I was there, I was down at the snack bar area. The county employee turned to me and said, "Thank you for letting me have a Coke." Because I have a condition where I can't drink Diet Coke. I can only have, and I'm a 50-year-old woman, and I appreciate the fact that you think I have the ability to decide for myself if I want to have a Coke. I think it's fine to have healthy choices. And I'm actually more accepting of doing that in the school system where kids are more captive. They don't have the opportunity for making their own choices. That's fine. But in the George Howard building, there are healthy choices, but why do we have to tell people it's got to be this much here, this much here, this much here? Why? Why can't we have a little bit of freedom, folks? Why can't we let people make that decision? Why can't we let a restaurant make that decision? The restaurants are not going to take away healthy foods because they just want to make us all fat. The restaurants are doing a business. They're doing a service. They're going to do what the community wants. I believe in freedom. And if you don't want to go to that restaurant because they don't have enough healthy choices, don't go to that restaurant. I trust the people of Howard County much more than Dr. Ball does. I trust the parents of Howard County much more than Dr. Ball does. And I think that you can make those decisions for yourself. The government doesn't have to do that for you.
Okay, now we're going to move to housing, planning, and economic development. Mr. Kittleman, do you support workforce housing development in downtown Columbia and throughout Howard County? If so, how would you ensure the current approved plan for downtown Columbia's renovation gets completed? How would you get the necessary community support for future developments?
Okay, I certainly support workforce development in all areas, not just downtown Columbia. We have to make sure that we have, right now, folks, it's hard to find employees. If you're a business owner out there, you're saying, I have a hard time finding people to come to work for me. It's difficult. We need to do more to make sure that we have folks trained in the different careers that they want to do. I think we need to do more with our school system and with our community college to make sure people are trained in certain vocations. I mean, people are still telling me that we're having a hard time finding the folks that do the skilled laborers. I mean, there's nothing wrong. I mean, my plumber makes more than I do. My electrician does fine. We need to make sure we have folks trained in those skills to be able to do the jobs of construction and other things. And I know we have the ARL, that we have the certain academies, but we need to do a better job of educating and training people when they're younger to be able to go into some of those careers. Because I think as much as I want every person to be able to go to college if they want to, not every person goes to college. And not everybody may want to go to college. We should figure out ways to help those folks be productive and skilled as well. My brother didn't go to college. He was okay. I mean, sometimes I think we put a stigma on some people. We didn't let people be who they want to be and how they can be the best they can be and go into apprenticeships and work with folks that learn a skill and learn a trade. That's what we need to do to make sure that happens. And hopefully we're going to get to housing and some other things, so I'll talk about workforce development. But I think we need to talk about housing. We need to talk about a lot of ways that we can deal with economic development. I'm sure we're going to get some more questions like that. But right now, let's just make sure people have the skills they need to be productive in the field that they want to be in. Thank you.
I think it's important that we have a full spectrum of housing affordability here in Howard County, one of the most expensive places because we're so affluent. And I'm so proud that we have our housing opportunities master plan, the first Howard County has seen in about a decade. I'm so glad that we have an affordable housing trust fund and that, thanks to the county council, we put $5 million into it. I'm so glad that while under Mr. Kittleman, he was able to see an increase of about 40 affordable housing units using tax credits, one of the most effective tools. We saw more than 200 over the last 4 years. I'm so glad that we have projects like Roslyn Rise, Robinson Overlook, Patuxent Common, real tangible ways that people can live, work, play, and grow in Howard County. We've done that together as a community. So I think we can build upon that success. We can break down barriers like down payment and settlement obstacles to ensure that people can continue to become homeowners. We can help people stay in their homes. These are things that we've actually done over the last 4 years. We've done it well, and unfortunately, we've done it bad.
The disparity study determines whether a government entity, either in the past or currently, engages in exclusionary practices in the solicitation and award of contracts to minority-owned, women-owned, and disadvantaged business enterprises. There have been calls for years for Howard County to have one. Will your administration commit to finally pursuing a disparity study?
We'll definitely take a close look at it. One of the things in talking with many folks about the concerns of increasing opportunities was they wanted to ensure that they were able to be subs and primes in more contracts. And that's why I'm so proud that we were able to increase more opportunity through our Equal Business Opportunity Program. Significantly more, and now we have the highest percentage of minority and women-owned businesses getting contracts with the county. I'm glad that we were able to grow our local business initiative from about 100 businesses under Mr. Kittleman's time to now over 300 businesses in just the last 4 years. And they're getting more money, tens of millions more over the last 4 years. I'm glad that we actually were able to decrease the number of waivers. One of the concerns that I heard from many minority businesses was that there were too many wives who were actually fronts for their white husbands' businesses, and they were getting waivers under the previous administration. We drove that number down and made sure that truly women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses have access to the marketplace. We brought people together through the community college, the school system, to make sure that they were able to bid on those. We brought for-profit businesses and had fairs. In our last fair that we partnered with a corporation, had about 80 minority contractors there. So I am so glad we've made progress. I do think that we do need to continue talking about the pluses and minuses of a disparity study. But right now, we're trying to put more money in people's pockets and expand opportunity.
Put more money in people's pockets. He's taxing you folks. He's overtaxing you. But also, he didn't answer the workforce question. He went all to housing. Didn't even answer one thing about workforce. And the question was workforce. But let me talk a little bit about minority participation in business. I think that's very, very important. And I'm glad you noticed that our administration started the local business initiative. He wouldn't have been able to improve it if we didn't start it. And so I think it's important to realize that's again how you do things. We start things and the next person builds on it. That's really good. You know, we have something called Track Howard when I was county executive. He changed the name to Hoko Dash. He always changes the names. But it basically what it does is it keeps track of what's going on. Now we're looking at yearly. I think we need to change that to quarterly so that we can make sure how are we doing with minority business participation? How are they doing with local contracts? We need to figure out a better way to make sure we know what we don't know so that we can improve. But go to housing real quick. When I was county executive, the Columbia plan, downtown plan was adopted in 2010. I became county executive in 2014. I was told by the affordable housing community, it's not working. We can't get any affordable housing units in downtown Columbia. We renegotiated with Howard Hughes to make sure that there are now going to be 900 affordable units in downtown Columbia because our administration sat down with the community advocates and with Howard Hughes, working with the county council to make sure that happens. And the other thing you realize is rental properties, what we always talk about at affordable housing. What about owner-occupied? The $5 million from the trust fund, I think we should use that to start a Howard County affordable housing land trust like they do in Frederick, where we then can have homes renovated, and then someone, a qualified buyer or low income, can purchase that house. The land trust still owns the land, but they don't own the house. Then, when they are time ready to sell, they get equity in that house. And therefore they can build intergenerational wealth. That's how you get someone out of low income status to move on to greater stuff. We can't just do it by renting. We've got to give them equity in their homes, and that's how we can do it.
Mr. Kittleman, what specific steps do you plan to advance health equity throughout the county and decrease inequities and access to things like healthy food, public transportation, and affordable health care? Are you supporting expanding the SNAP program among other farmers markets in addition to the ones that exist?
No question, we need to do that. I mean, food insecurity is a real thing in Howard County, folks. A lot of times you go back to, we're a wealthy county, but we have food insecurity. I have volunteered with the Indian Cultural Association at Miller Library on many Saturday mornings, and there are people lining up in their cars. It seems like miles. And we're there for 4 hours, 5 hours giving food out to people who live in Howard County. Unfortunately, that organization has gone to Dr. Ball on numerous occasions to ask for his help in helping us get a food salvage facility so that we can get food from areas that are throwing it away to make sure we can give it to people in our community. And deaf ears, nothing from his administration. We need to make sure that we make that a priority. Healthy food is important, and I support making sure people have healthy food. But food is important. We need to make sure people have the opportunity to get food. As I said earlier, nobody can survive when they got to worry about where their next meal is going to come from, folks. They can't be a good student, they can't be a good parent, they can't be a good employee. We need to make sure that we have those opportunities available to people. I think we continue to work together as a community to make sure that we have all those things available. The resources that we need to give to people who don't have the ability to help themselves. I'm a firm believer in giving somebody a hand up, making sure they have the opportunity to be successful. And once they have that, they can flourish. I want to make sure they have the opportunity to flourish as well. Thank you.
I am so pleased that we have been able to actually support our farmers. Under Mr. Kittleman, he shut down an agricultural land preservation program. We reopened it, and since we reopened it in 2019, we have now saved about 300 acres of farmland. they were able to get out 12,000 meal kits in that year alone, the largest in any single year. We have invested so much in ensuring that people have what they need to eat. And throughout the entire county, expanding programs in Lisbon, from Lisbon to Long Beach, ensuring that everyone has access to food, healthy foods, while still helping our farming ecosystem. And so I'm proud of the work that we've done. I'm proud of all that the community has done. And I do think that we still need to continue to do more so that our young people have the resources that they need to be able to eat food. Now, we've worked with our school system to do that. We've expanded and enhanced programs to make sure that our young people are fed. But there are still challenges nationwide and still challenges right here in Howard County. So we're going to do that.
We're going to move to public safety. There have been robberies, carjackings, and recent murders in Columbia. This leads to the perception that crime is on the rise in Howard County. Can you individually address how you are currently dealing with this perception and your plans to address the issue?
There's a reason why every year that I've been county executive, Columbia has been named the safest city in America. Than in the last 15 years. More sworn officers, and we can address more community policing, work on more complicated crimes like human trafficking, cybercrime, and if you look at the FBI data, there's actually a decrease in violent crime, a decrease in assaults, a decrease in motor vehicle thefts. We've seen, while there's increases in crime all around the nation, in many categories in Howard County, crime is actually down. And in the categories where it's not, we're going to continue to support our police officers. There's a reason why in 2018, when Mr. Kittleman earned the endorsement of the police union, he called it very special. However, in 2021, both the state and local law enforcement officers are endorsing my campaign. They know that for record investment in public safety, they know that implementing things like body-worn cameras, our very first police accountability board is the right mix and balance to ensure that not only are we safe, but each and every one of our residents has an opportunity to feel safe. Thank you.
Perception. Folks, it's not just perception. If we had a press in Howard County, you would know this. But in 2021, we hit a record level of homicides in Howard County. And people say, Allan, you're so negative for bringing it up. How would you know? It's not going to tell you. We have to have enough press. We've had a 100% increase in carjackings over the last 3 years. He talks about burglaries, assaults, motor thefts. In the first quarter of 21 to the first quarter of 22, significant increases. I know some folks from the Font Hill community in Elgin City, and they said they were having people break into cars all the time. Folks, it's not just perception, people know it. They know that Howard County is not a safer place. And you know what? This company that says we're safest, it's Wallet Hub. It's Wallet Hub. Who's Wallet Hub? Who made them the terminator of who's a safe community? I think we need to make sure we talk to the people in our communities, and I'm telling you, I've talked to thousands in our communities at that door knock. Nobody has told me we feel safer. Not one person. It's because they don't. It's because we need a leader who will make sure that we don't bring national issues to Howard County. We treat our folks in Howard County, we treat the issues we have in Howard County. We don't bring things from outside and say, oh, we gotta have it here. Our police officers are great. They're doing a great job. But they don't feel the support that they should have. They don't. They tell me that they're now firefighters. When I said, what do you mean by firefighters? They said, because now we come when you call. Because firefighters in the station, they come when you call. That's not how our police officers should be. Our police officers shouldn't be sitting in their cars waiting to be called. They should be active in our community, just like it should be in our school system. We have a county executive that took natural concerns, took the school resource officers out of our middle schools, making it more difficult for our police officers. We need to have better leadership on public safety.
Mr. Kittleman, would you please share your thoughts and ideas about improving communication and visibility between the Howard County public safety leadership and the community? Citizens deserve to see and hear directly from the PD officials about public safety issues that impact their lives.
No question about that. They need to be. We have a good community outreach group. They're the ones that came out to Fawn Hill to talk about all the motor breaking into their cars. We need to make sure that we have that communication. You know, when I was county executive, and frankly, I don't think I started. I'm sure it started before me, but we have regular meetings with our police officers and our multiple community activists and community associations. I know the NAACP. I know Billy has worked very closely with the police department. I know the previous NAACP presidents did that. And I know when there were issues, they could go to them and make sure that they could resolve those issues. And they've done that with other communities as well, the LGBTQIA+ community. They would meet regularly with our new recruits, our new academy folks, and regular officers to make sure that we understand. And those from our immigrant community, to make sure they understand the different cultural issues and making sure they understand all the ways in which they can make sure that they can properly serve them. Our police officers aren't easy. It's unfortunate that we're having a hard time getting more people. It's because of this national mood that people bring to Howard County and other places. We need to make sure that they know that they are respected. If they make a mistake, they're going to be held accountable, just like anyone should, whether it's a school security officer or anybody. But we also need to make sure that they're valued and that we understand them and that we're going to respect them. Folks, we need to make sure that our police officers are well trained. They have the emotional training too, and the psychological training, working with how to be better support within our community, working with people in crisis. Think about it. Most of the time when you see a police officer, it's probably on one of your bad days or maybe the worst day of your life. We want to make sure those police officers know how to handle that, and they do. And we have a tremendous force. And so I would continue to make sure that they have those communications with all the various community groups and making sure that there's always this back and forth and give and take, because you always do so much better when you talk. You always do so much better. Thank you.
Mr. Kittleman suggests that somehow our officers are not doing their job as much because their morale is low, they don't feel supported. I reject that. I think that we have our officers who are putting their lives on the line each and every day, and I appreciate it. And that's one of the reasons why when I asked them, what do you need most? They said, we need personnel. Some of us can't even get a day off. Some of us can't have a vacation. And it's wearing not only on our physical, but our mental health. And that's why I'm glad that we had the investment to add 24 more police officers, the highest amount in 15 years. And ensuring that we have enough officers that can have more of these community conversations. We can increase community policing. We can ensure that our officers have the training so that they're feeling more comfortable. And I'm glad that during my time as county executive, I've appointed 2 extremely qualified chiefs. The first female and African American chief to ever and the first chief of Asian American descent. And by appointing these experienced, well-qualified, dedicated leaders, not only are they ensuring that our department has what they need, but everyone throughout the department in our community can see that if you work hard and you do your best, no matter what your background, you have an opportunity to rise to the highest levels. And that empowers them to even do more and be more, just like it does, frankly, for all of us. Thank you.
Preliminary studies and reports have indicated that the pandemic may have increased existing mental mental health providers no longer take private insurance?
Mental health challenges, frankly, were present before the pandemic. And that's one of the reasons why we launched It's Okay to Ask. And we launched that in 2019 before the pandemic, because it's okay to ask if you need help. And it's okay to ask if you see somebody who might need help. Hey, how can I help you out? We've now expanded suicide prevention, not only for our young people, but also for adults, to destigmatize mental health challenges. We have made record investments in mental health and forged exciting partnerships, like with Shepherd Prep, making sure that now we have dedicated resources for Howard County residents right there. We have ensured that each and every one of our schools now has mental health resources. And while the pandemic is not where it was in 2020, and we are on the road to recovery, the impacts are going to be felt, frankly, for generations. And we are going to, as we have, continue to make those investments in mental health supports with our partners and ensure that we are on the road to healing. Thank you.
Probably another one where we don't differ. I think it's important that we make sure we have those resources, and I completely agree with Dr. Ball. You gotta take the stigma away. Someone who has a mental health crisis or has a mental health issue, it's like someone who broke their leg. You don't go say, oh, I can't believe you broke your leg. We need to make sure we treat people with respect and make sure they know that they can come and get help. And so I appreciate that program you talked about. But I also think about substance use disorder. And so many people dealing with that have also been dealing with mental health issues. And what we have in Howard County is we don't have enough services and we don't have enough beds. We don't have enough beds, especially for women. And then also women with children. I've been educated so much by the community to let you know that, we have the Howard House, which, was a Shepherd Pratt, and then they told us we had to leave. And so under my administration, we renovated our home to expand and to make 16 beds there for men, and it's going really, really well. And I appreciate Dr. Wall continuing to work with it. But we need more. We need more. We need to make sure it's really women. There's a really lack of having beds for women who are in crisis and who are dealing with substance use disorder. And so that's what I think the next county executive has to focus an awful lot on, making sure we have those services available to people. We were working on that when I was county executive and before I left, but we haven't got there. And we need to make sure we make it happen now. Because those folks are valued. Those folks who need to have our support. And I'm telling you, once you give them a place to live, once you make sure they have the food they need, once you make sure they have the training they can get, they can really get themselves back on the right track. But they can't do it without us giving them a little support. So my major priority for me will be make sure we have more beds for those dealing with those types of crises.
And now we're going to move to technology. Mr. Kittleman, can you share your vision of how Howard County will leverage all of our local resources in the tech space? And will you prioritize technology investments in budget throughout the county? And do you believe in free Wi-Fi for all?
We have free Wi-Fi in the city. I think technology is super important, folks. It really is the way of the future. We have to make sure that people are able to do that. 5G. I hear from so many businesses, we've got to get 5G. We haven't got it yet in Howard County. We haven't had it make it happen. We need to be working with the community and the businesses to make sure that we can get that to happen. When we have 5G, we can bring so much more businesses to Howard County, doing so many more exciting things. But technology is important everywhere, folks. It's important in our school system. It's important in transportation. We can use technology better to help us with our public transit system, as well as with signals and dealing with other transportation issues. Technology is such an important part that we need to grab a hold of to do so many great things in our county and working in our region, frankly. Something like technology is not something just simply, Howard County and south of the border. We got to be working with people across. That's why I got to work with people in the Baltimore Metropolitan Council. When I was chairman of that council, we worked to make sure we had better planning regionally, better planning transportation-wise regionally and other ways too. It's important that we have leaders who can do that with people across jurisdictions. I have a reputation of being someone who can work across the aisle. reputation of someone who's a moderate, a centrist. I don't go on either far right or far left. That's not who I am. And I think that's the type of leader you need, someone who can work with everybody from every county around us to make sure that we have the best services regionally that we can do. So technology, yes, we need to do that so that we can do better in our gateway, because our gateway can be the economic engine that even greater than it is right now. But I think, folks, we just need the 5G is the big thing. Businesses aren't going to be able to continue to expand without that type of technology. Thank you.
The pandemic has revealed the importance of access to affordable Wi-Fi. And that's why I'm glad that as part of our record funding, we actually strengthened the backbone, the Wi-Fi backbone for our school system. And I don't know if you recall, but during the height of the pandemic, we were reading about numerous jurisdictions having entire school systems not being able to get on the Wi-Fi. But you didn't hear about that in Howard County. You didn't hear about that because we were proactive. We made the investments. We worked with our school system and our Board of Ed to keep our children connected. We also did a survey. We surveyed the households throughout Howard County, and we evaluated where the gaps in Wi-Fi were. And then we launched Transform Howard. And Transform Howard actually connects many of our disconnected communities. And once complete, over the next year, more than 85% of those who were not connected under Mr. Kittleman's administration will be fully connected. That is an exciting national model. And so I'm glad that our team has worked so incredibly hard with our community to connect people. I'm glad that we do have businesses investing in Howard County because they see our investment in innovation and broadband and connection. And I know that we will continue to reach newer heights and reach for the future.
Continuing with that technology question, the NAACP is promoting technology as a key social determinant of health and important to our country's workforce, and paves the way for business opportunities for all interested. Sadly, there are access issues and silos that make it hard for the underserved to make it a priority like other after-school activities and programs, so skills can be enhanced. Would you support state legislation to fund technology programs at the grassroots level outside of the school day? And what would you add to make the proposal bill strong?
I would definitely support that state legislation, and I think it will be an exciting opportunity. Under Ken Allan, he worked with Senator Mikulski and many others in our federal, state, and local delegation while I was on the county council to bridge that last mile. And we made a lot of progress throughout the state. However, I think the state having legislation and funding would be phenomenal, not just for Howard County, but frankly throughout our entire state. We want to make sure that all of our residents and our businesses and people who might be living in Howard County or traveling to another jurisdiction, vice versa, are connected. And I'd work with the state to do that. And I also work, frankly, with our federal partners to ensure that we do have the proper infrastructure and we're able to connect our folks of all socioeconomic levels and backgrounds.
No, I agree. I would support that legislation. I think it's important that I was 10 years, I was on the Maryland State Senate representing Howard County. And you need to have those relationships, and that's what I did when I was county executive, and that's what you can get done when we were dealing with Ellicott City, working for the federal government with Senator Mikulski and Senator Cardin, working with Congressman Cummings, working with Governor Hogan. You need to have someone who can work with everybody. You have somebody who has the ability to work across the aisle. When you do that, great things happen. Now you talk about technology, about grassroots, and you think that, my campaign is the largest grassroots campaign in the history of Howard County because we're not taking those big numbers that Dr. Ball's taking. And over the last 4 years, Dr. Ball has received $91,000 from one developer, his family, his employees, and his multiple businesses. $91,000. And there's others that have given $60,000, $50,000. I haven't, because I think it's important that we have a grassroots campaign. I think it's important that I don't spend all my time calling asking for money. I think it's important that we have someone who can get the trust of the citizens, knowing that when I'm county executive, I won't be beholden to those special interests, that I will be making sure that when you call, I'll be there for you. And that when decisions are made, they're not made because you can help me in my next election. I'm not here for political ambition. I'm not here for ego, folks. I'm here to get a job done that people can trust and respect their county executive. And I'm here because I'm a county executive who knows that you are the boss, not me. You need a county executive who's not trying to run his campaign out of his office. You need a county executive who's going to respect you and understand that everything he or she does is because you have given them that honor. And I want you to know that I will always respect that honor. And I will always put you first. And I'll always make sure you know that you're the boss, that I work for you.
All right, so let's give the candidates a nice round of applause. So now it's your time to shine. We have your questions for the candidates. Linda Brown for Mr. Kittleman. What name do you give to what happened on January 6, 2021?
Easy for me, it's an insurrection. Folks, I wrote a letter to the editor. Go look at the Baltimore Sun. I wrote it and I said Donald Trump should resign because he caused that insurrection. I said he was the reason for it happening. I don't have any doubt about that. I didn't vote for Donald Trump. Actually, in June of 2016, if you look at the Baltimore Sun, I was quoted as saying I unabashedly don't support him. I was a John Kasich person in that primary in 2016, the former governor of Ohio, a centrist, moderate. That's who I am. And so I want everybody to know that. No doubt in my mind whatsoever. And when the news stations and everyone determined that President Biden won the election, I put out on social media, on Facebook, I congratulated President-elect Biden, and I congratulated Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, and I said it's a historic time for America to have not only a woman, but an African-American woman as our Vice President. I put that out on social media. You know, I got some flack from my right folks sometimes, but you know what? That's the right thing to do. When the election's over, you get together and you support those. This election was not stolen, folks. It was not stolen, and the insurrection should never have happened, and I'm glad they're looking into it, and I want to make sure it can never happen again. And that's why, in 2018, when I saw that I had lost, I asked my wife and my family to come with me to go see Dr. Ball. And we got over to Taylor Hall, and he wasn't even there yet. Not his fault, he wasn't there yet. And we actually went over, we actually once told his team that they had won. And then I had to wait for him to come over, which is perfectly fine, I'm not complaining about that. And then I congratulate him because that's what you do in Howard County. You congratulate. And that's important, folks, because when elections are over, we have to work together. Now you're right, this is a time where we do have differences of opinions that we talk about. But when election's over, I want you to know I will accept the outcome of this election. I will not dispute it. I think the voters will make the right decision.
What happened on January 6th?
It was an insurrection. It was an attack on our democracy. And still, there are many people in the Republican Party who are defending it and who are glossing it over. There are thousands of people in Howard County alone who have changed their party registration, who have said, I cannot be the standard bearer for the Republican Party. Not Mr. Kittleman. The top of the ticket for the Republican Democrat, the Republican gubernatorial nominee, Mr. Dan Cox, is someone who is supported by Donald Trump. I do not support Dan Cox. I do not support Donald Trump. I support President Biden. I support Wes Moore for governor. And you're not going to see any equivocation of me saying that I'm a proven independent and I'm this and I'm that. I'm that. Democratic values. And what happened on January 6th was an affront to democratic values. And so with me, even if you don't agree, even if you don't support it, you know what you get. Mr. Kittleman talks about this grassroots campaign, which I appreciate, that's nice. I think if you look around this room today, my grassroots campaign ain't doing so bad either.
To Dr. Ball, how will you deal with the overcrowded schools, jam traffic, etc., caused by overdevelopment without increasing taxes, which are already the highest in the state?
Overdevelopment has been a concern for years, and I'm glad that as county executive, we've seen a decrease in building permits than under Mr. Kittleman. We've seen a decrease in development waivers, particularly in environmentally sensitive areas than under Mr. Kittleman. We've had a record increase in school facilities, and frankly, with all of the investment that we've made in school facilities, we're actually going to see an increase of about 2,400 more seats for our kids. We've expanded by paving and ensuring that there are more bike and pedestrian lanes, about 24 miles since I become county executive. We've expanded our roadway network. We understand the importance of making the right investments in our public infrastructure. We've made significant progress. We've addressed some of the years-long challenges, and I know that we still have work to do, but we're on the right path, and we're going to continue under a Ball administration to make those important investments to ensure that we do have that very best quality of life, not just overall, but forward.
I guess we'll continue the same format. We'll ping pong.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I'm sure that the developers really want me to win. No. They're the ones that have given him hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. 91,000 from one developer, folks. 91,000. You think that developer doesn't expect something from Dr. Ball? You don't think that? Dr. Ball, when he's on the zoning board for 12 years, never once voted against an increase in density. Never once. All the other ones did. Only he's the only one who never once did that. We need to have a county executive who isn't going to be beholden to the development industry. And he'll still come back and say, oh, well, he used to take my... That was the only game in town back then, folks. The only game in town. But the guy gave $91,000, never gave me one. Even when I was county executive, because he knew that I wasn't supporting what he was doing. But we need a county executive who is going to focus on what's best. In our school system, we need to make sure we have a county executive who's not going to be giving favors to those who have given him so much money because he's hoping he can run for some other office someday. That's not me, folks. I'm a Howard County employee, stayed in Howard County. And I just want to be the best county executive you can get. So, folks, that's what it is. And just so he can make sure, I'll make sure he's educated, I've already publicly come out and said I'm not voting for Dan Cox either. So, folks, I'm a Hogan Republican. I'm someone who can work with both sides. And they try to paint me as this terrible Republican. And why have I switched parties? Because, folks, we need to have a two-party system. We need to have a multi-party system. And so you need to have someone like me staying in my party and trying to fix it. And if it's stable, I'm going to try to save it. What we don't need is one party rule. And then you only have 30% of one party deciding who our county executive is. We need to have general elections meeting time. I'm a county executive. I'm a person who wants to work with both sides of the aisle. I get along with Democrats and Republicans, and I think that's what we need in Howard County.
Once again, you guys, look at us. Participating in democracy. Wow, imagine that. You guys have questions, we're asking questions. Okay, so this is from Diva. I guess we will take this one, Mr. Kittleman. Would you welcome a full-service Planned Parenthood office in Howard County?
Yes. I want to make sure everybody has access to But if people need to come to Maryland and they need to have access, I will commit to you as county executive, I will make sure nobody is stopping anybody from having access to their reproductive health. I want to make sure that everybody has those opportunities because I believe a woman can make that decision for herself. So I will do whatever I can to make sure that that doesn't change in Howard County. I would assume that Dr. Ball and I agree on this one. Thank you.
There's a reason why I've been endorsed by Planned Parenthood. It's because not only have I supported $1 million to Howard Community College for women's health, it's not only because I have put $1.3 million in maternal and child health, it's because when Mr. Kittleman was rising to the highest rank of Republicans in the state, the highest rank, he earned a 100% in Maryland right to life and was called an anti-abortion and choice candidate. I have been pro-choice consistently, not just for the 2022 campaign. I have a pro-choice record. I've made pro-choice investments, and I know that I will support Planned Parenthood in Howard.
This is from Tracy Doyle. Tracy says, I'm a retired person, lifelong Marylander. My fixed income is becoming harder to remain in Howard County. Can you help me?
As county executive, I've signed 2 senior tax credits. I know that it's very challenging to live here, work here, and grow older. And that's why I'm glad that in 2019, we launched an effort to become an age-friendly county. And just last year, the AARP accepted us and recognized that we are on the right trajectory. We're making the investments to not only make it more affordable for our older residents, but also look at the rest of the 8 domains of livability that the AARP had in their plan, that they said that ours was comprehensive and well thought out. Making sure that there are social interaction, that we have made the investment, frankly, and for example, our 50-plus centers. Our East Columbia 50-plus center cost about $23 million to expand and renovate. About $20 million of it was done under my administration. And I'm glad we've invested in the 50-plus Bain Center to expand it. I'm glad that we made record investments in our transit and in our RTA. I recognize that I want the very best quality of life for our older residents, and I want them to have more affordability. And that's why when you look at things like the $5 million we put in the Housing Opportunities Trust Fund, we're making sure that our residents who are living on fixed incomes, who may be homeowners, who may be renters, are not going to be forgotten. Those who helped create Howard County are always going to be remembered and revered. Thank you.
We talked about it already. It's really hard to live in Howard County. If you're on fixed income, it's really, really hard. Dr. Ball raised the fire tax 34%. It's just the same as the property tax, folks. Calculated exactly the same. He raised the transfer tax 25%. So if you're a senior trying to sell your house, it's going to cost more. He raised the trash fee 48%. So if you're a senior, you're paying a whole lot more for trash removal. Dr. Ball has overtaxed us. Now he'll come up and say, try and say earlier when I didn't even bring up the fire tax. He'll try to say, oh, what services are you going to cut? You don't have to cut any services. He's overtaxed us so much we have a huge fund balance. Well, why should Howard County have a huge fund balance sitting in their bank account when it could be in your pockets? And we'll cut one service, not one. Our seniors are so valuable in our community. We need to make sure that they feel comfortable staying here. Under my administration, we started the aging in place tax credit. That was under my administration. We need to expand that. Right now, it's too difficult for people to use. We need to make it easier. We also need to make a combination system where right now you have to live in the same house 35 years, or it might be the 30. But it's going to be the same house. Well, how about we make it that you just have to live in Howard County for 30 years? Even if you live in 2 different houses. We need to figure out ways in which we can make it easier for seniors to stay. And I'm a little bit biased and a little bit self-interested here. Because I have a 2.5, almost 3-year-old granddaughter living in Queens and Tribes. I don't want to have to move. I want to be able to stay here and be going to her school activities, going to her games. I want to be part of her life. And so many seniors want to do that as well. They are valuable to our community as volunteers and institutional knowledge, but they also want to be with their families, just like me. Thank you.
Dr. Zulian says, how do we support the Asian community if you're elected again?
My goodness, I tell you, the Asian American community has been so instrumental in Howard County. They have done so much to provide more, not just diversity, but more cultural awareness. I have probably one of the most significant and things I always remember about this campaign is how much I've gotten to know of the Asian American community and what they have done for us and how they've improved our education system, our businesses, our cultural arts. We need to make sure that they feel welcome. We need to make sure that they feel included. Talking about school redistricting. Dr. Ball tells folks that he wasn't involved in 2019 school redistricting, but his senior staff members called people in the community, in the Asian community, saying, don't fight it. So he had people in his administration calling people saying, don't fight it. But that's taking a position, folks. And we should be redistricting our students based on capacity and proximity. And that's what a big issue for our Asian American community is, to make sure that they know that when they purchase homes, and this is true for everybody, not just Asian Americans, it's everybody. They wanted their kids to be able to go to their community schools. They want to make sure their kids can live in their communities. And they need a county executive that will think out for them when that happens. And so, right now we're going through it again. No, we have a 13th high school. Yes, we need to redistrict, but that's a 13th high school. The one that we started my administration. We need to make sure that it's full. But we need to do it in a way that we can keep our communities together. We need to make sure that we have a county executive that will help parents to be able to have that voice, to make sure that they can communicate and be heard. And I want to make sure that the other issue for Asian Americans say is also with restaurants and businesses, dealing with issues and regulations that don't seem to understand the effect on their specific cultural businesses and restaurants. We need to make sure that we're open and understanding instead of passing regulations without talking to them.
I have been so excited to work with every facet of our community. In our Asian American Pacific Islander community, not only am I honored to work with some of the most brilliant, dedicated leaders who I've hired as some of my senior leadership team. So it's not just rhetoric to me, but I've actually hired people who are of Asian American Pacific Islander background. But we have Koreatown rather, that we opened with First Lady Yumi Hogan. We worked with our state delegation for an AAPI cultural center that we got some funding for. Under my administration, we had the first AAPI festival Howard County has ever seen, and had about 4,000 people. And when there were so many who were targeting our Asian American community members during the pandemic, and there was an increase in Asian hate, we actually worked with our Asian community. I worked with the governor and First Lady Yumi Hogan. And when so many people were concerned about hiring, I hired, as I said, Chief Gregory Durr, who is not only extremely qualified, but the first Asian American police chief in Howard County. The Asian American community here in Howard County, for the first time, many of them are feeling seen. They're seen in the highest halls of government. They're seen at the decision-making tables. They're seen in the most challenging times, like during the pandemic, when we actually put out about $20 million through CARES Act funding to our small businesses, many of which were minority and many of which were Asian, and they thanked Howard County government for stepping up for them. Thank you.
So we do have questions, and so I think what we'll do is, and we'll ping pong. These are kind of messy, and so, we'll get messy with it, but you guys are too broad, so you can handle it. And so, Dr. Ball, we'll go first with you. Jenny says, I heard you increased your own salary from 150 to 180. Is that true?
So the salary for the county executive is set by the county council, and it is usually tied to an index, a consumer price index, and so no, I did not increase my own salary. Thank you for asking.
And in all fairness to him, that's exactly right, because they always vote for it the year before the next election, and they don't vote for themselves a salary increase, so he's exactly accurate on that. But when I was county executive, I told him you shouldn't increase it.
Okay, so Mr. Kittleman, as we go into the mess, under the pressure of your Western Howard County friends, you never supported the creation of the first and only Hindu temple in the county. Are you against minority religions? That's for Barry.
Hey Barry, how are you? No, of course I'm not against that. And our planning, I think it was the Board of Appeals. That was the decision, they went to appeal, and I think it overturned their appeal. I think that's the way our system works. So I never was opposed to that, Barry. See you there. And so I certainly appreciate all religions. I appreciate everybody. The diversity is so important to our community. I mean, I think anyone who knows me pretty well. I am not a person who's going to be discriminatory in any fashion whatsoever. Whether it's your religion, whether it's your race, whether it's your ethnicity, I believe in everybody having the opportunities to be successful. I believe everybody should be valued. And so no, I'm certainly not opposed to that.
Once again, the records are clear. Under Mr. Kittleman, the Hindu temple was stopped. Under me, the Hindu temple was supported. I think that people should have an opportunity to worship how they worship here in Howard County. We should support religious freedom. And under a law administration we have, and we will.
This question, Dr. Ball, this is interesting because I think this is important because I think this is kind of like a real question, and I think sadly, I think it's how we kind of think. And I'm not going to mention the person because I just want to, I know you're going to answer the question fairly, but I think this is a feeling that communities have many times. You see things happening and you don't really understand them. Someone says, a lot of African Americans in Howard County are concerned, a lot of Asian Americans are concerned that you're planning to move blacks below the poverty level to Baltimore City here in Howard County. So that's like, I feel like that's something that people talk about, kitchen table, that we talk about. Why not talk about it today? So that's a feeling. Would you answer that?
I think Howard County should be a welcoming county. I think that we should not be closing our borders to different people based upon their race or where they grew up. And I did grow up in Baltimore County. Y'all let me in. So thank you. And I think you've heard throughout the night certain dog whistles that you see from the federal level, the state level, and now on the local level from the Republican Party. Soft on crime. He's going to bring in those people. There are so many issues and dog whistles, and guess what? I think everyone should have an opportunity to live, work, play, and grow in Howard County, and we shouldn't be closing the borders because someone is of a different race. That to me is abhorrent and important to our values. Thank you.
We certainly shouldn't close it. I think everyone who wants to come to Howard County, I want everybody to be welcome. No question about that. Did you hear me say He knows that's not true. He is being so politically divisive. He wants you to bring all these national issues here. He wants you to vote party. And I'm telling you folks, when you vote party, you're not always getting the best person. You need to look at the best person. He wants you to go to the ballot box and say, okay, Democrat, let's go down the line. He doesn't want you to think at all. But folks, there are good people who are Democrats and there are bad people who are Democrats. There are good people who are Republicans and there are bad people who are Republicans. You need to look at who the person is. Now, going back to the Asian community, what I should have brought up before was the terrible thing that happened with the Racial Equity Task Force when a gentleman testified and had some terrible, hateful Asian rhetoric. Hateful. And then a staff person for the county council gave it a thumbs up and said, boss man. It was abhorrent that a county employee would do that. Dr. Ball never condemned that person for doing that. I watched the video. There's no question if you watch that video, that county employee was giving affirmation to someone with hateful Asian rhetoric. Hateful, not unacceptable in Howard County. Dr. Ball didn't come out against him. Even the county council didn't. I'm sorry, folks. We need to be able to stand up to our friends when they're wrong and to our enemies. I stood up to my friends when I supported marriage equality. I stood up to my friends when I supported the repeal of the death penalty on state senate. You need to have someone who has the courage to stand up to those who are their friends when they do something wrong.
Another issue, I think the issue that I'm seeing within the questions is Ellicott City flood protection. Would you like to go first, Mr. Hunter?
Sure. If you ever have a reason to believe climate change is what's happening in Oklahoma City in 2016 and 2018. That's clear evidence. And we have an issue with climate change, and we've got to do more to do it. And I appreciate Dr. Ball working on the solar program. I think that's a good thing. I don't know if we have to focus so much on solar farms. I think we should do it on our rooftops in the eastern part of the county. That's what I'm hearing is more efficient. We get more done. But like I said, when I lost my election, when Dr. Ball won, people in Ellicott City have told me the sense of urgency was gone. It was gone. They no longer did they have someone who made Ellicott City a priority. We had a plan that I did with a bipartisan plan with John Weinstein, the Democratic councilman at the time, to fix that problem. 4 years later, now one significant flood mitigation project has been completed. 4 years later. And the two that are in construction were things that were in my plan. They would have been done well before now had I been county executive. There are 4 buildings that both Dr. Ball and I agree that should be taken down. Nothing has happened in 4 years without taking those buildings down. Folks, you need to have a county executive who makes it a priority. We need to make sure that Ellicott City is safe. Every time it rains, today there are thunderstorms. The people in Ellicott City are scared. I get scared. You need to have a county executive who makes that a priority. Dr. Ball will say, okay, we got an alarm system. Oh yeah, we have. Now he'll say few things, all of which were being blamed by my administration as well. But the big things we have to get done have not been done under Dr. Ball. We need to have a county executive who make that a priority. That's why I challenge you. Go knock on the doors of the businesses in Ellicott City. 90% of them will say they're supporting you. Because they know that when I'm back in office, something really is going to happen to do with the flood mitigation in Ellicott City.
There were devastating floods in Allan City in 2011, 2016, and 2018. There were reports in 2014 of what should be done to address flood mitigation. Mr. Kittleman had 4 years, just like I had 4 years. Under his 4 years, no major flood mitigation projects were completed. Under his 4 years, there were about $30 million invested into flood mitigation in Ellicott City. Under my 4 years, more than $160 million was invested. 2 projects are almost done. We got $75 million low-interest, long-term loan from the federal government, the EPA, for the most transformational project the extended North Tunnel. Mr. Kittleman didn't even support it. This plan that he talks about, we put in months before the 2018 election as an election year gimmick. He talks about these buildings that were supposed to come down. He didn't own any of them as a county. We had to do all of the actual real work, not just the rent. He was going to take down 10 buildings. We preserved many of those buildings. And so over the course of 4 years, you've seen more progress on flood mitigation in Ellicott City from support from the federal, state, and local officials than in decades, including under Mr. Kittleman. He talks about tunnel alert systems as a throwaway line. Well, guess what? A lot of people want to be notified if there is an impending nuclear. We could have done simple things like high ground access points or just cleaning out debris. We cleaned out debris every major storm and have now in the last 4 years cleaned out more than 30 tons of debris preparing for the next storm.
Mr. Kittleman, as past executive, you were against CEF, Community Election Fund. In fact, vetoed it. Now you have turned 180 degrees in our using our tax dollars for your campaign. Why are you doing that? Is it because not a single business in the county supports you?
Very funny, very funny. No, Mitch, hey, you're right. When the Citizens Election Fund, first of all, when I was a state senator, I voted for the bill to let us have it. So I'm always been supportive of public campaign financing. But as you know, your federal system and your state system is a check-off box for your taxes. It's voluntary. In Howard County, they decided to make it come from our tax revenue. Money that could go to schools, could go to public safety, could go to a lot of things. I wasn't comfortable with that. Now, John Weissy, who was the primary sponsor of that bill, will tell you he and I had multiple discussions about this, and that's the only thing that I disagree with him on. I lost that policy decision. I lost it. Okay. That doesn't mean I don't support public campaign financing. What John Weissy will tell you also is, and he put a letter to the editor of your son, Dr. Ball tried to tell him don't even do the bill. Dr. Ball told him, I'm not ever going to use it. Don't do the bill. So it gets passed. This is the first time it's ever been able to be used. So someone's going to say, well, you took money before. That's the only thing we had back then. Now we have this other alternative. And who's the one that took it? Dr. Ball did not take it. He could have. Now he's going to say, Mr. Kittleman didn't fund the program. It wasn't ready to be funded. Even John Weissy will tell you that they wanted to wait till the next council got in to form the commission. So don't let him tell you he didn't fund it. It wasn't able to be funded because the commission wasn't formed yet until after the new other council. So folks, it's a great program. I made a mistake when I vetoed it. I've told that to a lot of people. I've told that publicly. I made a mistake. You need people who are willing to say they made a mistake. We had a debate not too long ago where they asked us, name a mistake you made. That's the example I gave. Dr. Ball couldn't think of one. You need to have elected officials who can say to themselves, you know what, that was a mistake. I need to do better. But I can tell you, this has changed my total view of campaigning. It's the way we should go in the future. It's the best way to reach out to people and make sure they can trust their government. I support it 100%.
Yes, Mr. Kittleman was against it before he was for it. Over the last decade or so, Mr. Kittleman has raised more than $3 million for his campaigns. Much of it from different public and private interest groups. And yes, I voted for the legislation that he vetoed. Yes, we had to override his veto after he put a letter to the editor about why he would support it. After he did a video about why he supported. I thought he was going to send a carrier pigeon about why he would support it. And now he is the largest beneficiary in Howard County history of it. Now, I was talking to somebody the other day and they said, look, who is more supportive of something like affordable housing? Is it someone who votes for affordable housing and funds affordable housing? Or is it someone who votes against affordable housing, doesn't fund affordable housing, and then lives in affordable housing? Mr. Kittleman says that he opposed the Citizens Election Fund with a core fundamental principle of taking taxpayer dollars. That is still a core fundamental principle, and now he's seen the light. And I love you for seeing the light. And I think that now that under my administration it actually was funded, more elected officials will see the light. Thank you.
The gentleman a national applause. We've been waiting to wrap it up. So as I mentioned before, we have the coin toss to start this off, and Mr. Kittleman won the coin toss. So that means that you're going to close it out, and that Dr. Ball's going to give his closing remarks. They both have 3 minutes for their closing remarks.
As I indicated before, the records are clear. There's 4 years for Mr. Kittleman, 4 years for me. We each also have legislative records. If you care about historic funding to our schools, if you care about public safety initiatives that have actually flourished under our time as county executive, if you care about us becoming environmental leaders like the largest solar power purchase agreement in the state, like the strongest forest conservation plan in the state, like us becoming a LEED certified county, if you care about making sure that women's rights to choose is protected, if you care about all the issues that make Howard County the very best place to live, work, play, and grow for all, then I humbly ask for your support. If you want to believe in negativity, divisiveness, the common tropes that you see that are part of so much that we see from the federal level of the Republican Party, then I think also the choice is clear. I think you can separate the rhetoric from the record. Our records are clear, and I ask that you take a look at it. I'm Allan Kittleman, your Democratic nominee for county executive, and for the last 4 years, your Howard County executive.
I want to thank the NAACP for holding this tonight, this forum. I want to thank Dr. Ball. We've been together a lot lately. The one thing we didn't talk about today, we should have, is integrity. Folks, integrity matters. So I got 3 minutes to tell you. Dr. Ball takes office, hires 4 of his campaign staff to work in his office. So they're being paid thousands and thousands of dollars from the campaign. At the same time, they're being paid thousands and thousands of dollars from the county. And they're in his office, they're doing social media for both the campaign and the county executive's office at the same time. No one thinks there might be a conflict of interest. Did anyone ask the Ethics Commission whether there was a conflict of interest? He has his campaign manager working in his office. Folks, a reporter did a story about this. They checked all the other counties. Nobody else does what Dr. Ball does. Nobody. He's running his campaign out of his office by your line, and he's having his campaign manager in charge of public information in his office. No conflict there, folks. And his campaign manager illegally denied hundreds of emails that should have been released because she refused to have the Office of Law review it. And the county council, my good friend Dr. Ball, had to slap him on the wrist and pass legislation saying, no! From now on, in the county executive's office, if you deny a Public Information Act request, it has to go to the Office of Law. They wouldn't have had to do that in my administration, because we always went to the Office of Law. But not Dr. Ball, because he was campaigning out of his office, he was making sure that you were getting nothing, because what is he trying to hide? That's the other question. Why would you put your campaign manager in charge of public information unless you were trying to hide something? Well, we found out he was trying to hide his meetings with the local developer attorney. What else was he been trying to hide? Ethics matter. Ethics matter more important than issues, folks. You have to be able to trust who's your county executive. He has a security detail. Did you know that during his administration, he's required his security detail, the police officers who drive him around, to do personal errands for him. In fact, there was one police officer who said, "No, that's not part of my duties." And 3 days later, that officer was off his detail. That's not acceptable. Dr. Ball calls people who support my campaign, and he bullies and threatens them. They tell me that. They say, "I got a call from Dr. Ball because he saw a picture of me in social media at one of your events, and I felt bullied and threatened." We don't need a county executive who treats people that way. We don't need a county executive who puts himself before you. Folks, the choice is clear. You can have a moderate centrist who works across the aisle, or you can have someone who puts himself ahead of you. I will always make you first. I will always remember that you're the boss, and I will always remember to treat everyone with respect and dignity, even county employees. Thank you very much.
Before I pass it on to Mr. Flowers, I just want to say thank you. And this is definitely a case of preaching to the choir. You guys are voting, you're participating. Our job is to expand the